I'm Anita Nair. I am representing Cambridge as your speaking coach for IELTS. For the next 1 hour, the tips and strategies that I'm going to share with you, I request all of you to hear well, and we'll have the question answer session towards the end. So you can park your questions, because by the end, I'm hopeful that your questions will be answered. That's my guarantee to you. Okay. So all the questions that you right now have, just park it. And towards the end, we'll address, if any, that I have not met with. So I'm Anita Nair. I'm a CELTA certified from Cambridge University. I've done my TKT. And I'm basically an educator and corporate trainer too. And I'm an IELTS coach certified from British Council. So that's a little bit about me. And now we will straight delve into the purpose that we have met today. This is the only test that you are going to do amne-samne, right? Face to face. Yes. The remaining 3 skills that you will be doing, you don't have any examiner sitting there in front of you. But speaking is only a skill test where we have the examiner with you. It's a face-to-face session. And I wouldn't call it a test. It is just 11 to 14 minutes of interaction with your examiner. All right, we are ready to go. Everybody is eagerly waiting to hear all the tips about speaking. So, as I already mentioned earlier, we have the speaking test on a separate day, right? And you are all waiting. Could you just mute yourself? Or Aman, if you're the co-host, please mute everybody. Can you?
परसों में आया था, तब वो जब डिस्कशन हो रही थी, क्लियर हो गया.
Whenever
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible now.
Okay, I think there was some. All right, okay. So whenever I ask you to type in the chat box, only then you are going to type there. All right. Otherwise, you're all listening to me. Great. So your speaking test is conducted on a separate day, and you're all at the speaking center waiting for your turn. So now what happens there? So you're all waiting in a waiting room. The usher comes in and calls out your number or your name. He or she escorts you to the examination room, the speaking examination room. So you are escorted from the waiting room to the test center or the test room. There, a wonderful person called as examiner who's very pleasing, and and she or he is very welcoming, and she will usher you in to the speaking test. So your speaking test now is for 11 to 14 minutes. May I know in the chat box how many parts are there in the speaking test? Just write the number in the chat box. How many parts are there in the speaking test? Okay, I see. All right, Tanika, Karamjeet. Great. Yes. So there are 3 parts in the speaking test, and Part 1 is about, again, 3 to 4 minutes. Similarly, we have part 2 and the part 3. So when I say speaking test, just because it is a test, I'm saying it is test. Otherwise, according to me, it's just an interaction or a discussion with the examiner. Remember one thing, all of you, a speaking test is not testing your knowledge. There are questions asked there, is it not, in the speaking exam? So they are not, the examiner is not testing your knowledge. What is she then testing? She's just testing your language. Okay? Since it is a speaking test, 11 to 14 minutes, you have to go on speaking. Just speak, speak, speak. Because the examiner is hungry to hear your language. You have to give the examiner sample. When I say sample, something has to be tested. Something has to be assessed. What is that the examiner is going to assess is the language. So you need to speak from the beginning till the end. So now you must be wondering, what are the criteria for assessment? What is examiner going to actually assess you? Do you know how many criteria are there for speaking assessment? May I see it in the chat box? How many criteria for speaking assessment? Mention it in the chat box. I request all of you to type in the chat box how many criteria are there for speaking assessment. Karamjit says 4, Dalveer says 4. About the others? Yes, yes. Muskan, Vani. So I want everybody to, text me in the chat box the number of criteria. So once I know that you are aware of that, that will help me to move forward and then take you through all the 3 parts. So quickly type in the chat box how many criterias. All right. So rightly said, we have 4 criteria. Okay, so we're looking into the criteria very soon. So now we are all here. You have entered the speaking room. You're comfortably seated on your chair, face to face with the examiner. So before the examiner starts asking you questions, there are small formalities that are required. That is, the examiner needs to check your credentials or your documents. So she will ask you your passport and she'll just check those ID proofs and then she'll return it back to you. And now she'll start the test. Remember, everybody, in the speaking, out of all the 4 skills, listening, reading, writing, and speaking, listening and speaking is the only 2 tests where you don't have the time control. You don't have to manage time. In speaking, it's the examiner who's going to manage time. You can comfortably talk for 11 to 14 minutes because you need to talk so that the examiner can assess you on all the 4 criteria. All right. So with that, let's see what we have here. So this is a quick, sneak peek we can do about IELTS test owned by 3 partners, as you know, Cambridge University Press and Assessment, British Council, and IDP Australia. So here we are. So this is a quick overview of the speaking test, and you can see the 4 criteria, the 4 parameters on which you are going to be assessed. Fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. Okay, and Another one vital information that I need to tell you is your test is recorded. So don't get alarmed, don't get scared, because every speaking test is going to be recorded by the examiner. So when you are seated, some of you would have given IELTS exam, so you have a fair idea how it is. So others, those for whom it is new, so let me tell you, the entire speaking test is recorded. So when you're sitting there, there'll be a small recorder which will be placed on the table, and your speaking test is recorded. Not for you, it's for the examiner, so that they are able to, review your test to do a fair marking. All right, so it's for that purpose. So all the other information about the time and the face-to-face interview with the examiner and the 4 parameters on which you are going to be assessed. So now let's quickly look at speaking parts 1 to 3. Now here we have the complete framework of it. 4 to 5 minutes for part 1, 3 to 4 minutes for part 2, and 4 to 5 minutes for part 3. So what happens in part 1? So part 1, so you see, what I want to tell you here is like speaking has to be the interaction, the discussion has to be very comfortable, very comfortable. So when you are comfortable to talk, only then there's good amount of language being produced. Okay. Now, if I'm the examiner and I'm going to ask you on topic, let's say, okay, Manpreet, speak about artificial intelligence. Now, this is a new topic, right? If you ask me, but frankly speaking, I don't know much about it. So do you think I'll be able to talk about it? No. Because if I'm asked questions which are unknown to me, I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to generate language. So when I don't generate language, there is nothing I can be assessed on. So the purpose of the examiner is to ask you such questions on which you can talk. Keep that in mind. So that's the reason they are going to ask you questions on familiar topics. Part 1, familiar topics that you know, I know, everybody know. What are those topics? For example, talk about your family, about your hometown, hobbies, travel. We'll see many more questions there. Don't you think you can talk about these topics? Very nicely. Very nicely you can talk. So the beginning of the test, it starts by asking question on familiar topic to get you started, to make you sit there comfortably. So you don't hesitate to talk. All right. So it is from known to unknown. Asking you questions in part 1 on known topic, so that, it's like the key, how to start the car, the ignition is on, and then you are put on the gear, and then you can speed up, and then you comfortably drive. Similarly, here, the first part is asking you questions about familiar topics so that you can get started. When you get started, then there is no blockage, then you are very comfortable to talk. Okay, so that's part 1. Part 2. What is in part 2? You are given a task. A cue card is given. So when I say cue card, itself tells you that there are something to help you to talk, isn't it? Something there, some support is there, some prompts are there, which will help you to build the matter. What more do you want? I'll give you something more. I'm giving you 1 minute to prepare also. How nice, how fantastic is that? So you are given a cue card plus 1 minute to prepare on that question. In that 1 minute, comfortably you can plan what you're going to talk. And for how many minutes are you going to talk? 2 minutes. Okay, you're going to talk for 2 complete minutes. All right, so that is part 2. Part 3, a little bit of hand holding is there in 2. Now in part 3, you're going to talk of something abstract, okay? But on the same topic that you spoke in part 2. Whatever topic you spoke in part 2, basis that, they are going to ask you further more questions. So that is part 3. All this takes 11 to 14 minutes. Right? Now moving on. Now let's see individually each part. So this is what I said before the test begins. You have to show your identification. Could I see your identification? You greet the examiner, and then what's your name? And the examiner will also call you. What can I call you? Okay, sometimes your names are quite long. So the examiner will ask you, okay, what can I call you? Feel free to give your short name. Okay, don't hesitate. If you have a very long name and if you're called, you have a nickname or a short name, feel free, tell her, okay, you can call me this. Okay, and where are you from? Very well. I'm from so-and-so state, or from so-and-so place and so-and-so state. Perfect. Let's move. Greeting done. Introductory question asked. ID check done. Brilliant. Now we start the test. So again, a little bit more on the criteria, fluency and coherence. What do these imply? You have to speak at length, no hesitation. What you speak should be very easy for the examiner to understand. No self-correction and repetition. Ideas are linked clearly. That is what is coherent. So when you're talking, see that you're logically arranging the ideas that you're saying. Okay. Otherwise, if you keep jumping back and forth, it'll be difficult for the examiner to understand what you're trying to actually tell. It'll be very difficult for her to comprehend. So that is why it says, link your ideas clearly in a logical way. Coherence. Coming to LR, lexical resource. So you can use a wide range of vocabulary. Certain places where you want to repeat, maybe you can paraphrase that, not using the same word that you used before. Change it, use synonyms, paraphrase it. And then accurate and appropriate vocabulary. Now, one thing that I want to tell you is, remember on the examination day, do not try out anything new circus, okay? No new thing to be tried out on the speaking day. Some words, see, we all have so many words in our head, okay? Passive words. We have heard this word from our teacher, or maybe you saw some podcast, you heard somebody saying this word. So you heard many words. Now, all these words are there in your passive knowledge. But when will you have it in your active knowledge? Only when you use those words. So let's say you have not used certain words which you have heard. So on the exam day, do not even try to implement that. Don't say, I think I have this word I heard somewhere. Let me try it out today so I'll get good marks in lexical resource. Please don't do that. Don't try anything new on the exam day. Be very consistent with what you were practiced. Do that same on the exam day. Be it for listening, reading, writing, or speaking. Reason being, yes, you know a word, but that word may not be the right word for that sentence, for that context. You understand? So please don't. But if you're confident that this word fits here, feel free, use it. Okay, so that is lexical resource. Next is grammatical range and accuracy. Now here, when we say grammatical range and accuracy, when you hear the word range, which means you have to use the structure or the sentence. Try not to use too many simple sentences. Okay. Develop your answers. When I say develop, definitely the length of or the range of the sentence will increase. So here we are talking about complex sentences using a lot of conjunctions, cohesive devices, relative pronouns, phrases. You can use all that and construct a complex sentences because there is one criteria called grammatical range and accuracy. So why accuracy? It has to be correct, as I said. Confidently use the right version. Finally, since you are speaking, we have one more criteria called pronunciation. Now, when I say pronunciation, first thing I want you all to remove from your head is that word called accent. Okay? You all get confused with accent. Should I speak English with a stylish accent, American accent, British accent? Don't worry. You speak the way you speak. Do not try to model or mimic any other accent. How you speak it in the same way. But speak clearly so that it is easy for the examiner to understand the language. There should be proper articulation of the words when we say, the clarity of the words. For that, you need to speak loudly also, okay? Don't just murmur inside. When you're speaking a sentence and you want to end the sentence, end it loudly. Don't start speaking and dheere, dheere, it will come slowly, dips, and at the end, you're speaking under your breath. The examiner will not understand. So whatever you are speaking clearly so that it is easily understood, and from the start till the end of the sentence, let it be loud and clear. Don't eat up your last few words. That happens when you're not confident. Okay, so pronunciation, you are the examiner is assessing you how clearly you're speaking, how clearly you're pronouncing the words, how well and loudly you're speaking the entire sentence. Then there are some stress and intonation. This is where you need to understand. This is not a test. It is an interaction, a discussion with the examiner. So stress and intonation. My dear people, remember, it's not a test. Let your emotions come out. Your feelings come out. So when your emotions and feelings come out, automatically the stress and intonation gets added to the pronunciation. I'll talk about this when we are doing I'll give examples there. Okay. What do I mean by bringing out emotions, bringing out feelings? All right. So finally, it says accent is not affecting understanding. Yes. So here, again, I reiterate, do not try to model, do not try to copy anybody's accent. You speak the way you speak, but speak loud and clearly and bring out your emotions. That is all about pronunciation in a nutshell. Now, till now, I was for the last 20-25 minutes, all of you would have noticed the way I'm speaking with you. Did you all see that I'm using my hands, my gestures? Did you all see my hands? Some of you, like I can speak, I cannot just keep my hands on my lap and speak like this. No, I can't. That means I'm sitting so stiff and speaking. I don't think I'll be able to speak freely because that's not me. So I need to use my hands. If you are also like me, please go ahead. You may sit there in your speaking examiner room in front of the examiner and you can very freely use your hands, but ensure that your hands don't go above your neck. Okay, it should not come in front of your face. That is not the right way. It obstructs the view. You have to maintain eye contact with the examiner. Do not look down. Don't look here and there and talk. Look at the examiners. Examiner is looking at you and smiling at you. So why don't you look at her too? Give her a nice smile and talk. So if you're using your hand gestures, ensure that it is below your neck, because you will be sitting, there's a table there in front of you, just like the way I'm sitting now. I'm sitting on the table and my laptop is on the table and I'm talking to you. All right? Okay. Now let's see further. So these are the some. Okay, did I miss something? Yes. There are some specific observation for, again, the band descriptor, the criteria. All right, I think this we can cover while we are doing. On topics that on which you are asked questions are these: art and work and study and birthdays, clothes, computer, hometown, daily routine, family and friends, TV, sports, cooking, weather, shopping, transport, old people, leisure time, newspapers. What more do you want? So you see, these are the common topics, day-to-day situation, day-to-day topics in your life that they're going to ask you. Don't you think you can speak on this beautifully in length? Of course, yes. Okay, so now you should feel relaxed, comfortable by seeing these topics. So these are the questions are going to be asked on such topics. So not to worry. As I told you, they're not going to ask you something unknown. They're going to ask you something that you know so that you can speak, so that language is generated, and then the examiner is able to assess you. If you don't speak for 11 to 15 minutes, no assessment, because you have not told anything. You have not spoken about anything. So that is not the purpose of the examiner. The purpose of the examiner is to ask you such questions on which you can comfortably and lengthily speak. Great? Okay. Are you all with me? Can I see a thumbs up if we all are on the same page? Yes, those who are sitting in the class, you can show me a thumbs up. All those are sitting in a classroom. Can I see a thumbs up? Fantastic. Okay. It can be high also. All right. So I'm able to see. Lovely. So now, part one. What are the common mistakes that students generally tend to do? Not understanding, not listening to the question, giving one word answer. I'm underlining that. One word answers or short answers. That also I'll underline. Stammering or pausing when speaking. And the last one, giving memorized answers, which is a complete no. Do not give memorized answers. Why? These are topics that you know. Why do you want a parrot? Why do you want to parrot? Why do you want to copy some sentence and speak? If I'm asking you about your hobby, everybody has a hobby, is it not? Speak on any hobby. Why do you want memorized answers? So when you know what you're talking, there is no stammering, there is no pausing. Yeah, you need to pause sometimes, okay, to think, to and recall some top ideas, So that should not be very big. So when you're thinking of the ideas, definitely if I'm talking about cooking, you will be able to talk so many things start flooding inside your head. What should I talk? It becomes like that. Now, when you do not understand the question, you can very well ask the examiner to repeat the question. If you haven't understood the question, don't give answer for anything wrong, because you haven't understood the question. So again, that will bring down your score. Ask the examiner politely, would you please repeat the question? Sorry, I didn't understand the question. Could you please repeat it? The examiner will repeat the question. So having heard the question very well, you can start giving your answer. Remember, the second point is very important, which I underlined. Do not give one word answer. Do not give short answer. Why? What happens if I ask you, okay, do you like playing cricket? Is suppose my question. What is your answer? Yes, I like. That's what quickly you will say. Do you like to play tennis? Oh, no, I don't like. I've given the answer. Do you remember the 4 criteria? Is there a language here? Is there a sentence here? Is there any language where the examiner can assess you? No. So you need to develop on that yes and no. Yes, no, extend, stretch it, develop it, and then give an answer. I'll give you the example. We'll do that. So now, this is part 1, sample question that you can see. So in part 1, we are going to be asked few questions, let's say 8 to 9 questions. So the examiner asks the candidate about him or her home, work, or studies. So one example, let's take this. This example is on food and cooking. All right. So now if I want to ask Muskan, what kinds of food do you like to eat? If I'm asking you this question, you have so many answers, is it not? We all love to eat. So what kind of foods would you like to eat? Arre, what a beautiful question. I can give bahut sara answers in this. That kind of motivates you to answer. So you see, part 1 is actually, what is the aim? Slowly making you comfortable to give answer, to open your mouth and give answer, and your confidence is slowly rising. And the fear is slowly reducing. Got that? What kind of new food would you like to try? Okay, I told about rajma chawal and what is it, tandoori chicken or whatever. Now tell me, what new food would you like to eat? And whatever answer you give, remember, there will be a follow-up question like why or why not. Reason. So be prepared to give the reason also. If you are all after at the end of this 1 hour, you will all be smart candidates, because before the examiner can ask why or why not, your answer should continuously have a reason. Oh, I would love to try eating sushi because, you see, because if you just say new food, I would love to try the Japanese cuisine, sushi. The next question the examiner will ask, why? So it's a good idea that when you start giving the answer itself, you give the reason. So what happens? Your sentences are long, complex, and you've given good lot of language for the examiner to assess. Got it? Do you like cooking? Generally, what do we say? Yes. But what did I tell you in the previous slide? Underline. Don't give short answers, 1 word answer. Remember this. Condition your head with this. 1 word short answer. No. So how will you answer? Do you like cooking? Now look at the way I'm answering. This is where I said, bring out your emotions. Now you want the examiner to, okay, let me give the answer, then I'll ask you a question. So Anita, do you like cooking? That's one of my favorite hobby. How can I not? I'm a foodie and I love to try new cuisine at home. And that's the reason I'm always in the kitchen after work, looking at YouTube and trying out new recipes. Period. अब इसका आंसर, what is this answer? Equal to yes. है ना? The answer is yes, I love cooking. But how did I say that yes? How did I develop that yes? Did you notice? I've given the reason. I'm a foodie. And I enjoy eating, and I enjoy trying out new cuisine in the kitchen, even if it is a hard, even if it is you can, even if I'm at work the whole day, and even if I'm working or studying the whole day, end of the day, I love to try out a new cuisine. So you did not say yes, but the examiner understood that cooking is your passion. So when I was saying out, did you see how happy I was? Even if my video was off, cut, and I was saying this, don't you think you can understand that emotion and the feeling with which I was saying that? Yes? So what happened? How did you know? Imagine my video was shut and I was talking. Can you not feel my emotion? How happy I am? How did you know that? From your tone. From your tone. But here too, you're sitting directly in front of the examiner. Your eyes are gleaming. You're having a smile on your face. Shows how happy you are. And when you were talking, when I was giving this answer, my voice was rising and my voice was falling. So that's the intonation. And the stress, the emphasis that I put, oh, I love trying out new cuisine. Or the stress I put on each word. So this is how you have to answer. This is why I said, bring out your emotions and feelings when you're talking, when you answer. Thumbs up, everybody? Yes? Beautiful. So these are certain questions from part 1. And these are the tips. I will give you a minute to read through this. If you don't understand a word or question, say so. The examiner will repeat the question. And the examiner, when she's repeating, remember, she will paraphrase it, okay? Because when she asked you the first time, you did not understand. So you ask, please repeat. So when she's repeating, when he or she is repeating, the examiner is repeating, they will paraphrase it so that you understand the question. Simplify it, okay? Sometimes the questions can be quite surprising. Surprising, okay? Not shocking. Okay? Surprising, not shocking. If it was shocking, then you can't answer. But surprising, oh wow, this is my favorite topic. She's asking me about who is my favorite sports person. Okay? I can see Manpreet and all like very excited to hear that question. Who's my favorite sports person? And you're waiting to answer. What a surprise. What a surprise. What a favorite question she's asked. Next, the topics in part 1 are all about personal subjects like family, hobbies, school, travel, ticketing, holidays. Get a friend to ask you questions on these subjects and tell them as much as you can. So this is when you're practicing, like you're sitting in the class, you can talk, in pairs, you can sit in pairs. So if we have trainers also in the webinar today, you could also put your students in pairs, give them the topic and ask them to, talk to each other. The reason is when you're training them on speaking, the confidence will come out only when they start talking to somebody they are comfortable with. All right. If you ask them to just stand up and talk in front of the class, they may hesitate. So from the comfort zone, slowly. So maybe you can put them in a group and ask them to talk. From the group, put them into pairs. And from pair, then bring them, single out them, and then ask them to talk. By then, they would have been confident. So you won't be able to guess the actual topics you will be asked, but this will help you to practice. Furthermore, part 1 focuses on familiar topics. Candidate must relax and answer. Don't have to wait for give reasons. This is what I said. Don't wait for the examiner to ask you why. You start giving the reason. If you don't like, if the answer is no, say why not. Give the reason for that also. So don't wait for the examiner to ask you. And when you're talking, naturally you can talk. See, all this while I was talking to you so naturally, this is how you have to talk in the exam. Because you're not sitting for an interview, remember. They're not testing your knowledge. Interview mein job interview, they're testing your knowledge, right? So you're not sitting for an interview. Only the question that they ask, you will answer. No. Here, they are not testing knowledge. They're testing language. Talk. We all are good in talking, no, when we are with our friends. Just imagine there you're sitting and talking to some of your colleagues. You can give negative answers, but give a reason. If you don't understand a question, you can ask the examiner. You do not have to tell the truth. Okay, practice with mocker. Now, this one particular topic is do not tell the truth. I mean, you don't have to tell the truth. So here, I would like to highlight when you're talking about some topic, remember, they are not testing your knowledge. They are also not going to cross-check whether what you said is right or wrong. Nobody is going to cross-check. Why did she say something? No. You can, if you're very smart, you can even plan and cook up something and tell it, at the spur of the moment. Suppose you don't know some answer and you have not experienced it, you can make up some answer and tell. You understand when I'm saying make up some answer? You plan there and then. Maybe it happened with your friend. Your friend might have told you. But today that question is asked to you by your examiner. You give your friend's example as if it happened with you. Examiner is not going to check with you whether you really went through this or not. Whether you really helped somebody. No. Examiner is not going to ask. So if it has happened with somebody else and you know very clearly A to Z, you imagine, put yourself in their shoes and you answer. Okay, so that's what it means. You don't have to tell the truth. They're not going to check whether you have told the right answer, wrong answer. Great. Now coming to part 2. Comfortable? 4 minutes over. Part 1. Ready to go to part 2 now? Class. Now in part 2, again remember time management is who's handling time? The examiner. So in part 2, what are the common mistakes that happen? Not understanding the cue card, lack of ideas, information, opinion, not able to support the opinion shared, using incorrect tenses and language, and giving memorized answers. So from now on, just forget, don't give any memorized answers. The examiner can catch very quickly. The examiner can pinpoint and tell, okay, this is all that you have read from somewhere, from Google Baba is something you've downloaded many such sample questions, sample answers. So these are some answers from the net directly taken. The examiner can very well tell that. Okay, so forget about memorizing answers. As I told you, topics are common, they're known to you. Part 2, cue card hai, prompts are given. Aur kya chahiye? 1 minute is also given for planning. What more do you want? Okay. Now we will address all these mistakes now. Let's see how. So what you will do in part 2, the examiner will give you a topic which is written in the cue card. She will give you a paper and a pencil for you to prepare. How many minutes? 1. All right? 1. So in this 1 minute, you get good time to think and plan what are you going to talk for. How many minutes? 2 minutes. Planning 1 minute, talking 2 minutes. Okay. So what will you do in the paper? In your paper, you are going to plan what you're going to talk. Plan and organize also, okay? Organize, because when you are talking about that topic, there are some prompts in your cue card. Agree? There are some prompts, some supporting ideas on which you have to talk. What are they? WH question. How, where, who, with, when. These are all WH questions on which you have to talk. So how many questions or how many prompts are there? Ensure that you talk of all of them. You miss one, score will come down. So you have to be very careful while you are talking. All the prompts are addressed. All the prompts answer are addressed. Okay? How will you do that? When you smartly plan in that 1 minute. You smartly plan and you organize. What are you going to say first, next, then? Why? एक criteria है ना, coherence. Coherence criteria. What is that? Logical way of sequencing. So the examiner is also looking at coherence. So here you ensure that you talk in a very logical way. So how are you going to plan? Let me show you. So this is an example of part 2. Look at this question. The question says, describe a lake, a river, or a sea that you have visited. You should say, how many prompts are there? There are 3 prompts. No, there are actually 4. Read the question completely. First prompt, where the lake or river or sea is, how often you have visited. Third, what activities you do. And the 4th is, explain why you like this particular place. Don't overlook the last question. That is kind of a trap. Distractor, listening may distractor. There are distractors and even in reading. Similarly in speaking also. So what happens is you talk about all the 3 arrows, but you forget the 4th one. Explain why. So this is kind of a kind of a trap. So include the 4th one also. How will you plan? Left, can you see this mind map here? So this is the way you're going to plan your answers. In the paper that you get, you can draw something like this. In the middle, you can write the topic. Maybe you visited a sea or a river or a lake. So the lake you visited. Then you branch many branches. Where branches are what? WH questions. Where, why, or how many prompts are there? 3. Where, how, what, why. 4 WH questions. So can you see here? How, where, then you have what, and then you also have why. So it's a good idea to write more ideas, more WH questions. Look here, who. There is a who here. But in the prompt cue card mein to who nahi hai. But we are all smart students, we are all very smart. So what you will do is, you are going to plan some more questions like who, what is the story? Is there any story connected? Why you went to that lake? Some story also there. So you write such notes, bullet points in that 1 minute. In that 1 minute, you can also write the name of the place is not asked. Where is this lake? Where the lake is there, but name of the lake or something, it's not asked. You add that, develop it. Don't stick to the questions that are asked in the cue card. Write extra in the planning. Okay? 1 minute is up and the examiner will say, start. So you're going to speak for 2 minutes. So how are you going to speak? Now in this mind map, you can also write numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which one will you talk first? Which bubble will you talk second? In which bubble are you going to talk third? You can put numbers. And when you are talking with the examiner, you have to maintain eye contact with the examiner. You can also look at your mind map, the planning paper. You are allowed to look at the planning paper. Look, come back, look at the examiner, and you start talking. At the end of 2 minutes, the examiner will interrupt and say, thank you, which means 2 minutes are over. Okay, because she's managing the time, is it not? So there's a clock on her table. So she's watching that. So as soon as she tells you to start, you look and you start talking about all that you have planned and organized. And just say 2 minutes are up, she will look at you and she'll say, thank you. So when she says thank you, you must stop. Don't continue. Even if the sentence is not complete, you stop. Don't worry, your marks won't be cut, or rather, they won't lower your score. Why? You spoke for 2 minutes, right? So why will you be penalized? No, you won't be penalized. Now, let us look at the other side of the coin. Let's say you spoke because you're not seeing the watch. The examiner is seeing the watch. If you speak for 1 minute and you stop, you have to speak for 2 minutes. But Jesse, 1 minute is over and you just stop. Look at the examiner and read her body language. If the examiner is still looking at you and smiling like this, that is an indicator to you that you still have time to speak. Okay? So as soon as you see that you have stopped talking and the examiner is still looking at you, quickly pick up from where you stop and you talk more. But don't repeat what you said, okay? Don't repeat, because in the descriptors you can see repetition, maybe there is penalization. Don't repeat what you said. Talk something more. That's the reason why I tell you to write extra in your plan, so that you have good lot of language to speak for 2 minutes. 2 minutes is a long time. Everybody understood? Can I see your hands up, wavering up? Class mein jo bhi hai, all those are sitting in the class. Just wave your hands so I know you have all understood and you're really with me. I'm a good storyteller, okay? That's why I see all sitting like this and I'm totally mesmerized. But sometimes you need to get out, and I need to know whether you are all with me. All right, great, good to go with part 2. What to do and what not to do. Thank you for that thumbs up. So, ensure 2 minutes talk. Continue talking. If 2 minutes are up, examiner will interrupt, say thank you, you will stop. But if you have spoken less, the examiner is still looking at you and you get that cue, immediately pick up from where you stopped and you continue the topic. Okay? Then when that 2 minutes up, she will again say thank you. All right? And then she will sum up part 2. Now moving on. Now quickly read the tips for part 2. Of course, I have told you many. Okay, so now this is a question for part 3. This is on part 3. So remember, the part 3 question is based on the topic that you get in part 2. All right, so here, this is a discussion phase. Okay, this is a discussion phase. So here you have to be still more comfortable to start talking with the examiner. So the example questions are, in your country, how much time do people spend on work and how much time on leisure? Is this a good balance? Do you think? Okay, so this is a typical question. So when you're talking here, remember to extend, stretch, develop on the topic. Give many examples. Okay, now let's say if you want to talk on this, how much time do people spend on work? So if I'm based out of Mumbai, and in Mumbai, people travel to work by train, okay, local trains or by car. And that, the trains are a lot crowded. It takes 1 to 1.5 hours to reach. So people spend a lot of time on work and traveling as well, because their workplace is far, and they also spend time at work and also to travel back and forth from work to home. And because of this, they don't get much time for leisure. So Sunday or the weekend is the only time when they have for themselves. And this is when they can spend a little bit of time on their favorite hobby. So you see, I added on that question, how much time on leisure also. So I don't think, now come to the next question. Is this a good balance, do you think? So I don't think this is well balanced. Work-life balance is not very well balanced here because they're working for 6 days and they just get 1 day for their leisure, where they also have to give time for, let's say, their family too. So this is how you are going to give the answer there. Got it? If you think that you have to give a negative answer, go ahead. Please give your answer. Would you say the amount of free time has changed much in the last 50 years? So when you say last 50 years, give some example how it was, free time earlier and now. Are you having a lot of free time? So you can say maybe with development and technology, now you have so many things with which you can work comfortably. So you get a lot of time. You can save time. The machines and appliances are helping you with your household chores. And you get a lot of time for your own talent and your leisure. So give examples in part 3. All right? Done? And when it is 15 minutes, the examiner says, this is the end of the test. That's the end of the test. Thank you. Right? So we have come to the end of part 3. Now let me show you all the tips. This slide, quickly read this. You're not being tested on your ideas or knowledge. So talk. Remember, the examiner always wants you to do well and will try to help you if you're struggling. So what you mean here is like sometimes the examiner is asking questions from a book. Okay, she has a script with her. So a certain time when you are stuck at certain place, let's say, so she will ask you some backup questions. So when she's asking you some backup questions, you can very well start from there. That backup questions are meant for you to answer. Okay? So that's why it says, even if you're struggling, the examiner will help you there. How to use phrases, useful phrases. In my opinion, it's possible, it's likely. When you want to say something with conviction, with your own confidence, these are the certain phrases, some examples of phrases that you can use. Some challenges, confidence. What do? Speak in front of the mirror, or you can record when you're speaking. If you're in the class, speak with your colleague, making notes. So when you're making notes in part 2, you have to make notes, is it not? So why don't you take some questions, and why don't you set a timer for 1 minute and practice it at home to write notes? So that will help you time yourself and making notes. How to extend, how to develop the conversations, give reasons. You can also give the outcome of it, the impact, cause and effect. You can give your opinion. So when you do all this, automatically your sentences are developed and stretched. Very important, give examples. And it is good to give examples to authenticate what you're saying. Examples from your own experience or someone else's experience. Very well, give those examples. Understanding abstract topics. You can buy some, you need to think, part 3. So you can buy some topic, abstract time. You can repeat the question that the examiner is asking. In that time, quickly think of the answers that you want to give and then start. Okay. So now finally, what are some do's and don'ts? Relax. Are you all relaxed now? Yes? Okay. Be very natural. Do not, try to imitate or copy anybody's accent. Be creative. Very important. You speak what you feel, what's in your mind. Signpost your ideas. Give your ideas. You can correct yourself sometimes when you know that you did a mistake, and quickly correct it without letting the examiner know. Don't make it very obvious. Okay, you can correct yourself, but not very often. So try when you're speaking, think before you speak. Make use of 1 minute prep time in making notes and planning. This is what I showed you, the mind map in part 2. Vary your language with synonyms and different grammatical structures. What should you not do? Don't repeat the question. Don't give short or memorized answers. Don't get stuck trying to remember a word. Forget it. As I told you, don't struggle to find a word. Whatever comes in your mind, then in your head, say it. Don't worry if you don't know about the topic. Show off by using this is what I said, don't use very difficult words which you think you know, but it doesn't fit the meaning. Okay? And now finally, be natural, chatty, friendly, open. There are no right or wrong answers. It's just opportunities to talk. Always add more to your answers. Prepare ideas, your memory, personal memories for recent and common topics. Don't worry if the examiner interrupts your answer. It's normal. In part 2, you should add more information than the cut. This is what I had told you. We're just summing up, okay? In part 2, the examiner controls the time. In part 3, explain what you mean with examples. So this example thing will always come in the third part. Okay, remember that. The example thing comes in the third part because cue card is what is given, then only you have to speak. And in part 1, it is all about your day-to-day topics. Okay, so but examples will always come in the discussion part. That is part 3. You can always ask the examiner to repeat the question if you want. Right? And that's all for the speaking tips and strategies from my end.